I happen to be in over 100 WhatsApp groups and sometimes get over 500 messages every single day. So I built an n8n workflow powered by Slack and the WhatsApp Evolution API to help me stay on top of WhatsApp groups by summarizing them. Let me show you how it works. Let me hit execute. Let me go into Slack and type in summarize group name from the past week. Hit enter, and that'll start the workflow. It'll pull the group name from the data table, then search for the messages, summarize them, and send them back to me. And we'll see that we have a detailed summary with the time frame, key points with dates, and any action items. So as you can see, this is a very powerful and very useful workflow that you can either implement into your own business or you can even sell it to other businesses. And the beauty of it is that it's completely self-hosted if you're using the Evolution API. The Evolution API is free and most businesses already use Slack. So this can just plug into their existing systems. If you're new here, my name is Shub and I teach businesses and professionals how to utilize AI and automation in their processes. If you're finding this video interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and drop a like because it really helps the algorithm and it helps other people like you find this video. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into building out this workflow. Now there's a few steps that we have to do to get this to work. Number one, we need to set up the Evolution API to get WhatsApp running on our computer, and we also need to set up Slack. So let's start with the Evolution API. I'm going to show you a quick version of this tutorial in this video, and if you're interested in learning more in depth about the Evolution API and how it works, I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description. So to get the Evolution API to work on your system, you're going to need to install a piece of software called Docker, which you can find by going to docker.com and downloading Docker Desktop and installing it. Just follow the instructions. It's very straightforward. Once you have Docker installed, you're going to need to create a folder on your computer and create two files in that folder. First file will be called docker-compose.yml and the other file will be called .env. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to open the Finder. Let's go to the desktop, create a new folder. Let me call this folder Evolution WhatsApp Test, and inside this folder we're going to create two files. So I'm going to open up a text editor, grab the contents of this file, and this file is the Docker Compose file, which contains instructions for Docker, the software that we just installed, for where to get the requisite files from and how to set everything up. You can just leave everything as it is, come back here and save it as docker-compose.yml. Save that. Then we can come back here. And by the way, this is my private school community where I go even more in depth with n8n and automation tutorials. We do weekly calls to troubleshoot your builds, and we also do one live build every single month based on what the community has voted for. So if you're interested in joining, there's a link in the description. So the second file is the environment file. Let's go ahead and grab all of this, copy, come back to our text editor, create a new file, paste that in, and what you'll need to change here is the API key. Now this can be anything, it's whatever that you decide. So I'm just going to write test_test_test. Obviously in a production environment, you're going to need something a lot more secure, but let's just keep it like this for testing and save it as .env. Hit save. If you get any warnings, just proceed. Okay, that's that. So the env file is saved, and now we can head over to the terminal if you're running a Mac and the command line if you're running Windows, and navigate to that folder that you just created. So I created the folder on the desktop, so I'm going to type in cd desktop, and I'm in the desktop, and let's go ahead and open up that other folder, cd evolution-tests. Hit enter. I need to double check the name. It's Evolution WhatsApp Test, cd evolution-whatsapp-test. And then once you're inside this folder, you're going to type in docker compose up-d and you hit enter. And once you're in this folder, you're going to type in docker compose up-d. Now I already have Docker and the Evolution API set up in another folder, so if I hit this command, I'm going to get an error, but if you're setting this up fresh, it's going to work for you. So let me go back out into my existing folder and show you what that will look like. So I'm going to type in cd evolution-api and type in docker compose up-d, and you'll see that I have these 3 containers and a successful green running text. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, it's going to actually download all of the files first. So you're going to need to wait for all the files to download. It may take about 5 to 10 minutes. And at the very end of that process, you should still get this message and running 3 out of 3. We now have the Evolution API running successfully on our local computer. But we need to make this accessible from the internet because our n8n lives on the internet and we need to make API calls. And to do that, we're going to use a service called ngrok. So I'm going to type in ngrok.com. You can sign up for an account. The free account is more than enough for testing and even for a little bit of production. So let me log in. Just follow the setup instructions. So click download the file, and in your terminal, just run this command. And then once this command is successfully run, go ahead and run this command. And this contains your authorization token, so make sure you don't share it with anybody. Once you've run these 2 commands, you can come back into the terminal and type in ngrok http 8080. And if you're wondering where we got the 8080 number from, we had set this up in our configuration files that we made earlier. So if I hit enter, you'll see that the local URL that we have set up is now being forwarded to this URL over here. So if I copy this and come into the browser and drop this in and navigate to this URL/manager, I might get a warning. So I'm just going to hit visit site, and we'll see that we are now inside the Evolution API. Now, I already have my WhatsApp connected, but if you're running this for the first time, you're going to click plus instance over here. Give your instance a name. So let me call this YouTube tutorial. Leave the channel as Bailey's. Leave everything else as the default. Hit save. And then if I click into this and click get QR code, that is going to generate a QR code that I can connect through my WhatsApp, just as I would for WhatsApp web. And once you're connected, you'll get a successful connected message over here. So since I already have one up and running, I'm just going to hit delete, and just make sure that you remember the instance name, which is going to show up over here, because we're going to need that later. So once you've done all of this, WhatsApp is now set up, and then we can dive into n8n and start building out the workflow. Let me talk you through what's going on here. We have 2 workflows. The first workflow is to pull a list of groups from our WhatsApp and populate a data table in n8n. Now, the reason we're doing this is that we don't want to pull a list of the groups every single time we want to get a summary, because that's fairly inefficient and it's also going to use up a lot of your AI tokens. So instead, what we can do is we can set up a separate workflow where we pull in all of the groups and save them to a data table inside n8n. And then we give our AI agent access to that data table. So anytime we ask it for a group summary, it searches the name in the data table, it pulls the group ID, and then it uses that to actually go ahead and get the messages for the summary. So to set up your data table, if you're in n8n, you can click on data tables, and if you don't see this and you're using self-hosted n8n, you will have to update your n8n version. Click on create data table. I already have mine, so I'm going to click here, and these are all of the groups. Just click add column and add one column called group name and add another column called group JID. That's all you need to do for the data table. Now come back out. Let's go back into the workflow, and we're going to have a manual trigger, which you can find by typing in manual trigger. Here it is. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to actually access that data table that we just created. We are going to delete any existing rows. And the reason we're doing this is that if you already have rows in your data table and you're running this to update your data table to include new groups, this is going to end up adding duplicate entries, and we don't want that. So we're going to choose the resource as row. The operation is delete. The data table is WhatsApp groups, must match any condition. And the condition should be that the ID column is not empty, which means there is a record. So we're going to delete any existing records, throw in an aggregate node over here, and then we're going to hit an HTTP request, which you can find by clicking the plus icon and typing in HTTP request. If I open this up, we'll see that it is a GET request going to this URL. Now, you'll notice that the first part of this URL is the same as the ngrok URL that we created over here, because that's where the Evolution API is running. So here is that URL, and the rest of it is /group/fetch all groups instance name. That's the instance that we had set up earlier. And we have a parameter called get participants equals false. We don't care who's in the group. We just want a list of the group. Under authentication, select generic credential type, make it a header auth, and then set up your credential. I already have mine, so let me click the edit icon and show you what it looks like. Give it a name, the Evolution API. The name of the parameter is API key. Make sure it's all lowercase, and drop in that API key that you had set up in the .env file. So in this case, it would have been test_test_test. Obviously, you would be using something a lot more secure. So drop that in under value, and your credentials are all set up, and we don't need to send any other parameters. So this HTTP request will get a list of all of your groups, and that list is what we will add back to the data table. So use insert row. So this time the resource is row, the operation is insert. Make sure you selected the correct data table. Map each column manually. And let me actually execute this so you'll see what the data is. So if I click execute, it's going to delete all the existing rows. And because it was 141 items, that's why we needed the aggregate node. Otherwise, it would end up sending 141 requests, and that would crash our API. So it's going to get a list of all of those groups. So it pulled in 141 groups, and then it inserted 141 new rows into that table. And you'll see that we have the group name, which is json.subject, the subject variable on the left side. And we also have the JID, which is the JSON.id from the left side. So that has pulled everything. So these two variables will populate our data table. And if I open up the data table, you'll see that we have all of the groups here. We have multiple pages as well. So that is the data table all set up. And that leaves us with the rest of the workflow, which is the actual summarization. And this is actually fairly simple. So it starts with a Slack trigger. I already have my credentials set up. Setting up your Slack credentials will take you about 4 to 5 minutes, and you actually need to set up 2 separate credentials, one for the trigger and one for sending the message. I've already made a very detailed tutorial on how to set up Slack. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. So we have the Slack account connected. We want to trigger this on any time a new message is posted to a channel, and we have to give it a channel to watch. So I'm going to go ahead and choose WhatsApp summaries. That's the channel that I've created in Slack. Now, once the Slack trigger fires, we actually need to add a filter, because the way Slack works is you have to create a bot or an app inside Slack and then add that app to a channel. Now, since our trigger is set up anytime a new message is posted, we need to filter when we send a message versus when the app has sent a message. And we can do that by dropping in a filter node and setting the condition as, and you can just copy this as is, where json.message.bot_id does not exist. So when this condition is true, it means a live user has sent the message rather than a bot. If this condition is true, then only will the rest of the workflow run. So the rest of the workflow is an AI agent. It's a fairly simple AI agent node where the prompt is json.text from the Slack trigger. And the system message is very simple. Summarize a particular group by a certain time frame, where you'll first pull the group name and JID with the get groups tool, and then get the messages from the group and provide the summary accordingly. We also need to tell it what the current time is, because if we ask it to summarize the messages from, say, the last 24 hours or the last week or whatever time frame, the agent actually has to know what the time is right now. We're also giving it a summary format, and it has to output it as plain text. And feel free to play around with this format as much as you want. So that's that. Our AI agent will also need a brain. I'm using OpenRouter, but you can really use any model that works well with tools. I found that GPT-5 and Claude Sonnet 4.5 tend to work the best. So you'll see that I'm using Sonnet 4.5 with OpenRouter. I would encourage you to experiment and see which one works best for you. The agent will also need some memory because there are multiple tool calls going, so it needs to remember what has happened. So give it a simple memory, which is fine. And here is where all the magic happens, where we have these two tools. The first tool is the get rows in data table tool. This tool will get the group's ID from the data table that we had saved earlier. So the operation is get, make sure you've chosen the correct data table, must match any condition, and the column is group name equals, and the value is defined automatically by the model, and keep return all defined automatically by the model as well. So this step is going to return the ID of that group, And that ID is then going to be used in this HTTP request tool, which you can get by clicking on the plus icon and searching for HTTP request. So if I double click that, we'll see that I've given it a description, get messages from group. It is a post request, again, to that same ngrok URL that we have going over here. But this time the additional URL is /chat/find messages and /the instance name that you had set up in Evolution API. The credentials are the same as we had used for getting the list of the groups, except now we also need to send a body. The body content type is JSON, and we're going to specify the body using JSON. Let me open this up so you'll see. So this is the JSON body, and really the only thing that you need to replace is the JID. So after the JID key, for the value, type in these two curly braces, $ from AI, and inside here, group JID, and close it with two curly braces. So this is going to tell the AI agent it actually has to fill in this blank. And finally, we're going to need to return the output back to Slack. To the right side of the AI agent node, connect a send a message Slack node, and this will be set up with your second credential. I'd encourage you to refer to the video in the description to set up Slack. The resource will be message, operation is send message to channel. The specific channel you can find by the ID, and it'll pull that channel from the trigger. So you can just copy this as it is. Message type is a simple text message, and the text is json.output. So hit save, and now that everything's set up, if you go back into Slack, execute from the Slack trigger, open up Slack and type in summarize Slack group test from yesterday, and you'll see that the AI agent is running. So let's hit execute, come back into Slack and type in summarize, and let me get a group name from last week. That'll kick in the workflow. It's going to get the group name and JID from the data table. It's going to get messages from the group, summarize them, and output them for us over here. So here is the output. Now, a few key things to remember is that you have to type in the group name exactly how it is. Otherwise, the AI won't be able to find it correctly. So that is one limitation. One way that you can get around that limitation is actually by asking Slack to output all the available group names for you. And then you can just copy paste the group name from the output that Slack gives you. And if you want a copy paste version of this workflow that you can just import directly into your n8n, I'd encourage you to join the school community, where I provide JSON template files and detailed step-by-step instructions that you can use to follow along with this tutorial. If you found this video useful, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like, and do remember to subscribe to the channel for more AI and automation content.